All right. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to move on to our final item of the evening. And so we have a CUP 24-46, Strategic and Operational Solutions, Inc., a conditional use permit application located at 2823 North Cole Road, and a rezone of approximately 2.03 acres from R1C to R2, and this is item CAR 24-18. Before I open this real quick, I think it's important real fast, if you would just indulge me. The person that is presenting right now, Jesse Lyle, has been a staff member here and worked in the development services department and with us, this riffraff, for several years now. And she just received a promotion, but is no longer going to be a part of this body. And I think it's important just to say thank you for your service. We appreciate it and wish you all the best luck in design review. You're going to need it. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
with that, Jesse, please take it away.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The item before you is CAR 2418 and CUP 2446. As you said, this is a request to rezone approximately 2.03 acres located at 2823 North Cole Road from R1C to R2 and a conditional use permit for a co-housing use. The subject property is designated mixed use on the future land use map, as are the surrounding properties to the north, south, and west, with suburban land use to the east. The surrounding parcels are zoned R1C to the south and east, with R2 to the west and MX1 to the north along New Stick Road. The requested R2 zoning is compatible with the comprehensive plan and appropriate for the location, as the property is along an arterial roadway near commercial and institutional uses and located within an area of change and an activity center. There's also an existing bus line adjacent to the property along Cole Road, with a bus stop planned at the corner of Settlers Avenue and Cole Road. The comprehensive plan encourages density in these areas to reduce vehicle miles traveled, utilize existing infrastructure, and locate housing near employment areas. Additionally, Blueprint Boise encourages the construction of affordable and non-traditional housing options. The applicant is proposing to construct a co-housing use on the site, which includes individually leased bedrooms with shared cooking and sanitary facilities. It is important to note that this request is not for a shelter house, which is not allowed in the R2 zoning, or for a recovery residence, which is defined as a single dwelling where individuals live together as one housing unit, where staff provides care, supervision, and treatment for persons requiring medical, correctional, or other mandated supervision. The applicant is proposing a 3-story apartment with 33 3-bedroom units, where each bedroom is individually rented, along with 3 2-bedroom units for staff, as well as an accessory building containing a garage, classroom area, laundry facility, and long-term bike parking. Rooms will be rented for approximately $500 a month, and residents must be enrolled in the associated program, which offers supportive services for vulnerable individuals, some of which are listed on the screen. The site layout shows the proposed co-housing structure located near the arterial roadway and office uses, away from the adjacent single-family homes. The proposal will be approximately 36 feet tall, under the allowed 45 feet of the R2 zone. The applicant will install the 10-foot wide sidewalk along Cole Road and retain as much existing landscaping on the site as possible. There are 104 parking spaces between the proposed co-housing use and the existing church, and a condition of approval will require a shared parking agreement. Additionally, the proposal must receive further design review approval. Public comment was received mostly in opposition to the proposal, with general concerns listed on the screen. Many comments expressed opposition to the use specifically and cited lack of program details, as well as many safety concerns about the intended population and the proximity to schools, parks, libraries, and halfway homes. Other concerns focus on traffic, density, and economic impacts. The letter of support cited the location of the subject property, how the proposed use was supported by the comprehensive plan and was a better use than vacant land, and how alternative housing types should not require a conditional use permit. As previously discussed, the proposal is not for a shelter house or recovery residence. Residents would be living independently within each unit while meeting program requirements to maintain their ability to live on the site. All relevant state and local ordinances must be met, including those for any individuals with criminal backgrounds. Subject property is located in an area that can support the proposal, and all common agencies indicated the proposal can be served. Finally, the proposal will be subject to further design review to ensure all zoning requirements are met. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. We're going to turn it over to the applicant. This is David Ruby and/or Steve Neighbors, the Architect's Office of Idaho. Hi, welcome. If you would, just state your name and address for the record.
Welcome. My name is Steve Neighbors. I'm the president of Strategic and Operational Solutions. I'm the administrative pastor for Mountain View Church of the Brethren, and I'm the president of the Christian Safety Net program. My address at Strategic is 5598 North Eagle Road. The church is at 2823 South Cole Road, and that's also, I guess, Safety Net is also at 5598 North Eagle Road. So first one, I want to thank you guys for giving me this time to explain. We tried to do it in a neighborhood meeting and it just turned into chaos. So we did try to meet with a neighborhood association, but we have none that we know of, or at least we've never met with one, at least in the 18 years I've been there. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk through some slides to help keep me on time.
Great.
I think this works.
Would you also just step into the mic just a little bit more?
Okay.
There we go. Great. Thank you.
Really, there's two entities, Mountain View Church of the Brethren. They've been there 70 years. They were annexed into the city 60 years ago. The property was bought from the White family in the mid-50s. Church was built in 1957. We were incorporated in 1968. Since then, the congregation has undergone tremendous changes over the years, including from a neighborhood of rural farmers to our present neighborhood. The church has decided to review its mission to its neighborhood and congregation given all the changes. To jump ahead a bit, the Christian Safety Net program was set up as a 501c3 educational nonprofit over 2 years ago. The Safety Net board is solely volunteer and comprises Ray Casey and myself, Steve Neighbors. Future board members will be included who are major donors that desire to sit on the voluntary board. What follows is how the church settled on a partnership with Safety Net and to determine the highest and best use of its God-given resources. I'll also address the two parties' roles and the elements of the combined offerings. Let's see if I get the right one here. Whoops. So I know you already know the property. The red line highlights the property that Safety Net is requesting a zone change. A significant neighbor is the large Flying H mobile home park that has been there most of our history. And that's this one here. And that our other neighbors include apartments all around the proposed development that have tenants that include a substantial number of parolees, refugees, and those socially and economically disadvantaged. The most controversial set of neighbors are 9 or more halfway houses in the area. Probably the one that everybody complains to us about is the halfway house here, Iron Sharpens Iron. We found them to be very good neighbors and they're doing a good job. That's not appreciated, we think. The statement that the church and Safety Net is not wanting a halfway house or a direct prisoner release program that has continued to be brought up. We keep saying that's not what we're trying to do, has fallen on deaf ears, with some continuing to stir up emotion against the project. What I believe the thrust of the opposition against the Safety Net program is that the church allows some of the people from existing halfway houses, from the Flying H mobile home park, parolees and refugees who wish to do so to attend our church service. I say some, as the church does have some sex offenders who have paid their duty to society, which are allowed to attend, but only after discussion with their parole officer and knowing the details of the judge's ruling and conditions of their parole. Given the neighborhood, the church has implemented strong safety measures, making it one of the Valley's safest public places. The church also allows Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous to use its building for their meetings. These programs have proven their value, and there is a need for them in the neighborhood. They will continue to operate within the overall safety net program. The church also recognizes that its congregation represents one of the lowest social economic group in the valley. Given the church's open door policy to all, including those sinners in need, that have already paid their price of justice, and the church has been publicly painted by many throughout the city as the church of the homeless, the church of the felons, and even the church of the pedophiles. Nonetheless, the church feels it must maintain its open door policy for those that legally and safely can let attend. So to kind of give an overview, let me start with the church's role. Like most churches, Mountain View Church of the Brethren does not use its building full time, but approximately 12 hours a week. And most of the time, even then, it's only a partial use. Has the church reviewed how it best could use its resources to meet its declining neighborhood and its declining congregational demographics? It first established some general guidelines as noted on this slide. Whoops, wrong way. I think I did that. Oh, so those are the general guidelines that the church set up for us to kind of decide how we were going to use our resources. The next thought was, is this just our neighborhood? So what we found out was that the entire country is dealing with the same issues we see in our neighborhood and congregation. The safety net is a term used by the U.S. government for its social programs. We didn't make up that term. The U.S. government has spent $1.3 trillion in fiscal 225 funding various safety net programs. This does not include the massive amounts of funds spent by states, counties, cities, and private charities. This has had about a 40% success rate and is slipping. There still remains 60% of the people in the United States that fall under the poverty level, which is really, I misstated that. That's only addressed 40% of the people in the poverty level. Let me restate that. The official so I thought it'd be interesting to look at the official poverty level. So the official poverty level, the OPL, is based on the cost in 1963 of the minimum required food level. Over time, they simply added a multiplying factor to that 1963 cost of food. Today, the OPL is set at 3 times that 1963 food cost. This amounts to $15,650 for a single person. The government set up a supplemental poverty measure, the SPM, which is much higher as it includes recent food expenditures, as well as clothing, shelter, utilities, phone, and internet. The SPM level varies per geographic area. Boise's housing and rent is pushing our area upward from the regional area, even doubling the OPL. As part of our overall due diligence, I attended the 2024 U.S. Housing and Community Development Conference in Dallas, as well as the U.S. Housing and Dorm Conference in Los Angeles in 2025. In summary, the past recession created a housing demand that still exceeds the supply side. Contractors have made record profits for the past decade, as they must in good times, knowing there's coming hard times. However, the long-term material demands and the lack of skilled workforce has forced higher labor costs. This will continue to create housing costs outside the reach of much of the population for the foreseeable future. The consensus of those two different seminars or conferences was that the U.S. will see a further growing housing crisis. There are a myriad of issues that impact life skills and the economic earnings of a person. Education happens to be one of the more critical components. Those without a high school diploma or a trade skill presently struggle to have a sustainable life now without social support from the federal government or state or whomever. In the future, people without college degrees or trade skills may struggle to maintain a sustainable lifestyle, particularly during an economic downturn. The impact of AI on the workforce employment and employer-needed skill sets is another concern that came out of those conferences. Beyond the $1.3 trillion paid by the U.S. government for their safety net programs, the amount paid by states and other entities also amounts into the trillions.
Mr. Neighbors, you can continue, but you have no more than 10 minutes left. We have a maximum of 20.
I should be about 16 minutes.
Okay.
Let's see. At the other end of the spectrum, let me see where I'm at. I stopped somewhere. The federal student loan balance alone is also another 1.6 trillion. Today, we have about a 38 trillion national debt. Most of it caused by efforts to help education and safety net programs. And the future forecast is it's going to get worse. The median usual weekly earnings by age and sex, we looked at that to see how we could help. Statistics show that those most impacted are the young under 30. Many families find their children cannot afford to move out of their parents' houses even in their mid-20s. At the other end of the spectrum, there are those who are senior and retired and are finding it increasingly difficult to make ends meet, and they're having to sell their homes with a lease payback system at a high interest discount rate to live off their home equity. Thus, the church will work with Safety Net based on its commitment to address these issues. Safety Net's goal is that the student who can pay market rent for a single bedroom and a shared 3-bedroom apartment or home will have the opportunity to rent a single dorm and receive work and life skill trainings at no additional cost. All the education they want and need will be included in that dorm rent. Safety Net does not compete with other educational facilities, but rather utilizes those educational facilities, their supplied free resources to get students ready for a more formal certification or degree, if the student so desires. As a dorm resident, Safety Net's target will be mostly young students, but with a mix of experienced older dorm managers or mentors. There are seniors who are retired with proven life skills and would be willing to mentor those hungry to learn from their experience. There are those that find that after retirement, they feel like they still want to add back. And that's what we're finding. We find a good mix of these is what we want to put into the Safety Net dorm. Then those seniors, instead of selling their homes at a high discount rate to live off of it, can sell their home and they can pay a dorm fee and have a home. And in some cases, have somebody there to help them in case they fall, slip, whatever. We can't help those that need medical help at the time, but if there's somebody living in the dorm with them, we think that'll help. Let's see. By removing financial barriers to education with the students incurring no educational debt from student loans, it is supplementing the local area with the country's efforts in its safety net programs. The Safety Net site will be a campus atmosphere that encourages work and life skills within a Christian worldview, again, at no additional costs. Safety Net does not compete, like I said, with other educational facilities, but rather utilizes their skills, their knowledge, Oh, I think I already said that. Sorry. There will also be career counselor involved in helping the students think through their passion and training desires. There will be full-time on-site property manager. As to the more experienced dorm managers, some young students will need a firmer hand to learn some of life's disciplines, such as maintaining a clean house, having a good relationship with others, while others will need a gentle, affirming manager mentor. These experienced seniors will help us maintain the dorm's culture. Safety net. Oops. So who can we help? Safety net can only help those already employed and committed to self-improvement within a faith-based environment. The candidates must pass a robust interview process, which includes reviewing the candidates' existing circumstances, their commitment to life and work skill improvements. It will include input from that career counselor, their family, and where appropriate, their employers. The candidate must be willing to at least listen to a Christian holistic worldview, give back to society through 4 hours of community services a week, and participate in the social and character building programs built within the safety net programs. The importance of the dorms. It is a dorm rents that makes the inclusion of free preparatory education, trade skill training, transportation maintenance, and other work and life skills possible. It is a campus culture with its peer accountability, career counseling, and dorm mentor managers that will optimize the success of the program. The dorm rent pays the cost of the entire program. Experts had advised us not to mix genders, at least at first. So the plan is to begin the dorm to be exclusively for men as we perfect the culture and policy. The dorm has a break in the middle to accommodate a change in this policy in the future. The educational elements, however, are open to all genders as space permits. We have to give priority to the dorm residents. This is a sampling of some of the thousands of educational classes online. Plus, there's a couple hundred nonprofits in the Valley that will also help with classes. We aren't doing the instructing. There's already, it's like I said, it's online or it's already built within other nonprofits. All we're doing is facilitating these other nonprofits and all the online universities and Khan Academy, there's just tons of them out there. Harvard alone has offered 163 classes for audit. So has MIT, so has I think most colleges. There are also online specialized certification programs. The church will also has an open door, robust, free food pantry that is used by the neighborhood, but can also be used by dorm residents if needed. As the safety net's role, it provides the facility for trade and service providers who would love to have an opportunity to highlight their profession. So within the dorm unit, there is a trade training building where so far I've had 100% of the service and trade contractors that I've talked to would love to come and say, this is what working in this trade's like. And I'd love to be able to find people that would be interested in joining in that trade. Hopefully some of the students will join some of the trade training organizations beyond Safety Net's basic introduction. We're not trying to be the electrical union training, we're just doing an introduction to them. Safety Net will also address transportation issues. We have a basic auto maintenance shop. We'll supply career counseling with monthly follow-up, and we provide that disciplined learning environment, all the social programs, the character building programs, and the dorm facility. Our intent is to create planned metrics of what works and what does not work. And we'll do that through 360-degree assessments. Goal is to create a nationwide goal. If our church can do that, there are 330,000 other churches. There are 2 million nonprofit organizations to help with a safety net program nationwide. Each church could target their specific demographics in their area that they feel they can help. The premise is that every person should have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've had a lot of complaints that there's too many men going to be there, and we believe even men have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. If we tried to be a halfway house or a direct release from prison ministry, we destroy our basic goals, we eliminate any interest from other churches or charities, and we will also find financing difficult. We're not interested in either one of those, even though we keep being painted that. We're not affordable housing, or I don't know what to call us, or dorm. Final comments. On behalf of the church, I'd like to invite the neighborhood association to meet with us, to meet with the halfway houses, and you'll find that they paid their price to society.
Thank you, Mr. Neighbors. We're going to have to
All
wrap up. It's been your 20 minutes.
Okay.
Appreciate it. We'll be asking you lots of questions in a moment, I'm sure.
All right.
But in this point, I need to turn our attention over to the West Bench Neighborhood Association. And at this point, anyway, Jonathan Melby. Is Jonathan here or anybody? You are here. Okay, come on up. I think you know the drill, perhaps. State your name and address for the record, and you two have up to 20 minutes should you need it.
Yeah, before I start testimony, we received notice for this over the Christmas holiday, and I wasn't able to schedule a board meeting until this Thursday. So I do not have authorization to speak on behalf of the neighborhood association. So I am prepared to give personal testimony. If that's
Okay, so we need to hold a second.
Mr. Chair, Jesse has confirmed that John Melby is the designated person to speak. Are you John Melby?
Yes.
Then that is who we have listed as the person who can speak.
Okay.
So you have up to 20 minutes.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So, good evening. I'm Jonathan Melby. My address is 2924 North Maywood Avenue. I serve as president of the West Bench Neighborhood Association, but this evening I'm testifying personally. I last testified before this commission for the King of Glory, Lutheran Church's partnership with Leap Housing. They created income qualified affordable housing units. That project represented true affordable housing, open access, income qualified, no religious requirements, or no mandatory programming. What we have here with the Mountain View Church of the Brethren Safety Net project is a very interesting project, but it's also very odd. There's a lot going on here. The Safety Net project isn't open access affordable housing. It's program conditioned housing, which has mandatory counseling, community services, and supervision requirements. Ahead of this evening's hearing, I submitted written testimony concerning the puzzling change from MX1 to R2 in their rezoning application, which was first submitted as R2, then withdrawn, and then resubmitted as MX1. The future land use map for this parcel shows MX. It's at the heart of our neighborhood activity center for the West Bench and Winstead Park neighborhoods. You can literally walk from the corner of Cole and Ustick down to this parcel without crossing any public roads. There are driveways and a private lane, but this is right there at the center of our neighborhood activity center. This should be MX1 or some other MX. Now tonight, I'm raising a code interpretation question that I think needs resolution before approval. Given all that's tied up with this, this is not a simple straight up co-housing thing. It's co-housing plus mandatory services and many other aspects, which perhaps might actually make it something that is different than straight up co-housing. The applicant says it's co-housing, general population housing, but if you read through the Q&A and the neighborhood meeting transcript, they also said, you can't live here unless you're in the program. We accept anyone, even those on parole. They accept parole board recommendations. They provide 24-hour coordination with parole officers. A lot going on here. So here's the problem. Even though the staff report asserts that this should be perhaps classified as co-housing, I went through the other documents in the original, it started with the interdepartmental review. It just seemed to kind of slide into that as this appears to be a co-housing thing. And I don't know that that actually had a careful in-depth review by the Director of Planning and Zoning Development. What I'm asking for is for the planning director to provide an interpretation to determine this appropriate zoning classification. Is this a situation where the use cannot be included in any existing classification? And as I puzzled looking over the different categories of co-housing versus recovery residence, they're both kind of awkward fit. This seems to kind of be somewhere in the middle of all that. It has all of these conditions and the supervision. It is open. When you look at how the zoning code defines co-housing, it's really centers around, is this an individual lease for a space, a shared space that has community attributes connected to it? But it also specifically says it doesn't include any facility meeting the definition of recovery residence. Now, this one, co-housing, it's all about, are we leasing it by the room? Then you switch over to recovery residence. It's defined as people who are under correctional or mandated supervision with staff providing care and supervision. That's more about the what's going on there. If you take the what's going on there and instead of handling it in a more traditional way, say we're going to lease it by the room, does that magically turn what's going on there into co-housing? I don't know. Can you avoid recovery residence classification by using individual leases while serving the same population with the same staffing structure? If you look around the valley, there seems to be a very common land use pattern that doesn't have a name on it. You take a building and you take all of the rooms and you rent them out, maybe not even by the room, but by the bed. And there are quite a few places that attract a lot of folks to places like that. And if you look on things like the registered sex offenders registry and so forth, there's a large concentration of stuff that goes on there. I'm not saying that this is that, but what I'm saying is there's a use out there that's kind of strange. It doesn't fit recovery house. It sort of is like co-housing, but it sort of is like recovery house. And it's a pattern that's out there, but we don't have a very clear way in our code to assess what needs to be done to implement it safely. We don't have a very clear way in our code to ensure that it has satisfactory staffing and oversight like we do with the recovery residences. So it's kind of a confusing situation. So I have spent hours, many, many hours, in addition to my regular work and family commitments, just trying to sort out, what is this space in the middle? Originally, I thought maybe a new category is it, or maybe you can go with the existing co-housing if you put some sort of, what do you call it? you look at it at different levels. Co-housing for 10 units, that's pretty straightforward. Co-housing for 100 units or 500 units, those can be very different animals. So we might need some sort of graduated, maybe they're just handled through conditions on the acceptance, but some sort of graduated analysis or requirements for what things of higher scales need. Because it's clear that this type of vehicle can be used for those type of things. I'm not saying this project does that, but without some sort of guardrails, either through a specific zoning use or perhaps conditional uses placed on the thing, it's not clear that we're ensuring that the potential difficulties are fully mitigated, because there's a lot of unknowns here. So maybe one last thing here in closing. I keep hearing that this is not a halfway house. This is not something that's going to be accepting people coming out of prison. Perhaps one thing that we could do then is limit community supervised residents to perhaps 5% of the total population. Statewide, the general population rate is under 1%. So that could be something like that, could be a guardrail that just says that, yeah, this is, even though we might approve this under co-housing, we're not going to let it slide into this mysterious middle ground or something that actually is more like recovery housing. So
Could you repeat that? The 5% of what?
5% of community supervised residents. So that might include people who are on parole or
Gotcha.
probation or registered sex offenders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Melby. Okay, the item is up for questions among the commission.
Sure.
Neighbors, I'm assuming you're going to have a lot of answers or a lot of questions you're going to be asked, so you might want to pop up here a little bit. Okay, Commissioner Seha, I think. Yeah.
I have a handful of questions and I'm not going to ask them all. I will just ask a couple.
You know what? Actually, now that you say that, let me do this. I think we should structure these questions a little bit. And so what I'd like to do is let's start with the rezone, and then we'll get into the CUP. Okay, but let's start with our question. Any questions that we might have, since we have two items before us with the rezone, and sort of organize our train of thoughts a bit, and then we'll get into the CUP component of it after that. So with any questions
So
on
with
rezone,
that, I have no questions on the rezone.
Okay.
My questions are all specific to the conditional use permit.
Okay, we'll come back to
Chair?
Commissioner Seha. Commissioner Stefanski.
I have a clarifying question, because we heard a couple different things in testimony. I'm wondering if staff can clarify. We heard from the neighborhood association that there was potential for this to be an MX rezone, but in all my documentation, it's R2. Can you clarify that so we're clear?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's a great point of clarification. When this application was originally submitted, it was submitting as a request of to rezone to MX1. However, based on some of the feedback from the neighborhood, the applicant decided to adjust that request to ask to go to R2 instead of the MX1. So the request is to go from R1C to R2.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So for rezoning, and this transition between R1 to R2 is still getting used to that one. So when you rezone from R1C to R2, being an R2 zone that's adjacent to an R1C zone, you're actually more restricted in terms of height and transitional setbacks than you would be if you were just an R1C zone, right? There's more transition height requirements and things like that. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's correct. So any R2 or R3 adjacent to R1C has additional neighborhood transition setback or requirements, which have extended setbacks and then step downs on height.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Torres.
my question could apply to both the rezone and the CUP, but I will ask it just to break things up a little bit because I think we're gonna have a lot of questions about the CUPs, if that's okay with you. So my question is for staff. If the rezone and the CUP were denied, the applicant could proceed with the same demographic for these, but just as apartments. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the applicant could come back with a request for just a multifamily building, but there are different limitations on multifamily in R1C zone.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions on the rezone? All right, so this is where it gets muddy because we have zoning and we have land use, and the land use map is definitely tied to the comprehensive plan, but so too is the zoning. So we have a property that, according to our comp plan and our future land use map, is intended to be a mixed use area and is specifically called out with an additional element, which is the neighborhood activity center. And is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so this application is purely residential, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. However, high density is permitted under the general mixed use future land use. And so I think that this gets to the high density. We're in there. So it does, as far as I can tell, I think satisfy that. Fair?
Mr. Chair, the R2 zone does not have a density limit,
Right.
and the comprehensive plan does encourage density near and within mixed use areas in order to support some of those other commercial and mix of uses.
Okay. So to the applicant, I know that you're new to the development game. I understand this, but this is a complexity in terms of what the spirit of the comprehensive plan, the West Neighborhood or the West Neighborhood Bench plan says, and that this area, Cole and Ustick, is to be activated and have a mixture of uses. And so I guess the question that I would ask you, have you given any thought at all in this discussion in the lead up to offer anything, even if it's a very modest commercial space that is next to Cole Road? As an example, I know it's an overused use, but like a small coffee shop, for example, that maybe some of your tenants could actually be employed by, but does offer the neighborhood a mixture of uses, which is exactly what the land use map is trying to do.
So we're okay with MX1. We're okay. We want to do whatever you guys think we should do. We're willing to live within the rules of either one of them. I think we originally filed as MX1, and I think because our concern was we had an auto shop in the back. You know, we had a trade and service training room. We have a kind of a big barbecue area out front.
Yeah.
So, we have the pastor's office at the very front of Cole. So we're open.
Okay.
It's outside my pay grade, to be honest.
And respectfully of that, the things that you listed, however, are privately to be used. It's not an auto dealership or an auto repair place that is open to the public. That's my point. And it's intended for your residents. Totally fair, understand it. But what I'm getting at is that the intent and spirit of our comp plan and the future land use map is to try to bring in a mixture of uses that are open to the other residents around it. So that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't want to throw a kink in everything, but there's 4 hours of community service required by every one of the students.
Mm-hmm.
And the Flying H mobile home park, and that which leads, and they're already really fragile into homelessness. That which leads to homelessness is not taking care of their vehicle.
Yeah, nope, that's fair. I understand.
So we'll be, we might be taking in neighbors' vehicles and helping them in the shop, through the community service program.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions on the rezone portion of things? Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I just clarify?
Yeah, please.
That the R2 zone is allowed within the mixed use land use designation within the comprehensive plan.
Right. This is where it gets spirit of letter of law of, yeah.
Also, if I
Okay.
could say, we actually tried to we tried to abide by both so we tried to say, so we went ahead and did the setback for 8 feet, and we went ahead and did the sidewalk wide. We're trying to figure out how we can make sure no matter where we end up.
Yep.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward then to, it sounds like where we have a lot more questions, which is the conditional use permit. Commissioner Seha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question is for staff. How do you define recovery residence? Just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, so the recovery residence is individuals living within one housing unit. So individuals not renting out like each separate bedroom, they're living together as a housing unit together. And there is staff that's providing services and care for the people in that recovery residence.
Okay. So we've had a couple of developments west of Capitol, south of the Boise River in the old, I don't know what that area was called. It's where the old Pizza Hut was near Boise State. Lusk, the Lusk district now, I apologize. So, I know a lot of those, or at least 2 of those apartment complexes, I would consider co-housing because students rent a bedroom in an apartment and then they share the kitchen and living room.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, is that like a clarification question?
Well, I guess that to me, we just had the West, the neighborhood association person come up and talk about how this is it seems like it's kind of somewhere in the middle. So clearly the proposal is not a recovery residence, but it's not just a standard co-housing because there are other requirements that the developer or the applicant is proposing. And so to me, it appears as though it's transitional housing.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for clarifying. So a co-housing use is, defined in code, and it can be something more like a traditional dorm, or it can be something more like what the applicant is proposing. It's new within the current development code from December of 2023. So anything approved prior to that wouldn't fall under the specific use. And, just another point of clarification. So when a use comes forward, it is a director determination to determine what that use most closely aligns with within the development code. And they found that the co-housing use most closely fit what is being proposed.
Thank you. So as someone who sat on the Modern Zoning Code Advisory or the committee, this particular scenario was never, to my recollection, discussed. So for me personally, it's there's a lot of questions I have. There's a lot of questions I have based on what's been provided, and in large part because there are monitoring requirements and so, like, for example, the application speaks about wraparound services, and this is really more of a question for you, Mr. Neighbors. You talked about different online opportunities for the residents, but when I think of wraparound services, I think of like having licensed counselors and social workers that can assist. It's very clear to me this is not a homeless shelter, and that was reiterated by our staffing. But they're, like providing housing, you mentioned like maybe providing housing for parolees. Well, Department of Corrections and the Parole Commission does have certain requirements. Like you have to have a plan in place that they have to approve. And so there's just a lot of questions that I have regarding your proposal?
So maybe let me address that. We're not trying to be a release place from the prison. The concept of transitional housing is what's created a lot of the emotion because we're a mid-step education dorm. So we're using free education to help those guys that don't have a high school education get a GED. We want to help those that want to get some college classes or get some kind of skill or trade skill, that want to improve their work skills, and at the same time life skills, how to get along with people, some disciplines, character development, all that kind of stuff. So we see ourselves as a bridging the gap between the expense of education for those that can't afford it. And so we think of ourselves as a dorm and we're going to use all the free things made by the professional educators and say, we want to help you get ready for that if you want to do it. So if you want to become an electrician, we want to have someone come in and show you what it's like, what the lifestyle's like, all that kind of stuff. And then here's the electrical unit. Or if you want to have a college education, you can't afford it. Here's all the classes. You can get all the classes free. You can audit it. You can get college ready. And then here's the universities that focus on your career, your degree that you want to go after.
Okay.
So we think we're a mid-step that's missing for those that want to improve their economic and life skills.
So I just have one more question and then
Yep,
I will.
Go ahead.
So in the application that was submitted, it talks about, developing a program. So the residents would work with a counselor and they develop a program. And then once they've completed their program, then they can go on to do something else. And so my question to you, because you talked about in the application about like a certain vacancy rate, maybe it was 15%. I don't remember the specifics. But I was just wondering, like, what is the estimated time it will take to complete the program? Per the application, once a student completes the program, then it appears they have to vacate the apartment. And I just want to make sure that that's correct.
So we don't have a set time frame. It's just that there's some constraints that force them to decide whether they want to stay there or not. So it's really up to them. So if they can go get an apartment or live in a house with some of their buddies that they have out there or that they've gleaned on campus, on our campus, we think of it as campus. If they want to move out somewhere else, they freed themselves from monthly accountability to the career counselor, to their program. They freed themselves from 4 hours worth of community service, and they may have been fed up with the faith-based instruction. So we see people getting tired in a month. We see people that wants to stay there a year and a half. We don't know. We're open. We're open to whatever it takes for them to meet what they want to do to improve their life skills, life and work skills.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Torres.
I have several questions, some of which kind of follow up on Commissioner Saya's questions. So my first question is to staff. Has the city allowed dormitory style of housing development in the past, particularly under the modern zoning code, that wasn't part of university housing, a halfway house, that term recovery residence that we used a few minutes ago, or a shelter? I can't recall any during my time. I know we're trying to encourage, a diversity of housing types and unconventional housing types in some cases. But I don't recall any during my time on commission. I just figured I wanted to see if you could address that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, to my recollection, we haven't had anything come forward quite like this. But I would liken this to kind of like you said, if this was a traditional university campus, they would have rules and things that you had to follow in order to continue to stay in that program and living in that housing. This would just be operated by a private entity on their private property.
Another question to follow up for the applicant. So as far as the residents go, will they have a lease they sign? Will it be and if so, would it be like a month-to-month lease? Would it be a 3-month lease? How do you plan to manage that?
They will go through an interview process, pretty robust, that I explained. They will work with a career counselor. They will say, this is the program that I want to pursue. And so that's the program they want to pursue. We want to retain the right that if they're not performing, after whatever, or they're a resident that's creating troubles, or they're violent, or we find that they're schizophrenic, or it's something we can't handle, we want to be able to say, hey, or you've got to go to the mission, or whatever. We can handle people. My son works with people that are vulnerable. And there's no place for a lot of them. So, but there's a lot of them we can't work with. We're not going to have on staff nurses, or we're an educational. You don't have a high school diploma, or you don't have enough college, you don't have a degree. How can we help you get acclimated so you can get that trade skill, that certification, that educate? We're kind of in the middle. We're trying to bridge that middle gap that we see is missing. And we see that amongst our congregation. We see that amongst all the flying age. We see that amongst the homeless. But we're also trying to say that a lot of times these people at risk, we think more and more pressure is going to come on our society. And one of the things that leads to homelessness is they don't take care of their vehicle. And pretty soon they don't have a vehicle, they don't have credit. And the next thing you know, they can't get to work, and they become homeless. And so that's why we included basic auto mechanics. And we also find people out on the streets without insurance. That's one of the first things that they don't have. So we want to make sure they are good citizens. You will have insurance. If you're going to use the auto mechanic shop and have a car in our parking lot, it's got to have insurance. We got to check the tires. I mean, some really basic things. So we're trying to help people with basic life skills that they may not have learned. And a lot of kids are in schools, at home, and they can't move out because they can't afford to. And how many people went to high school and didn't pay attention? How many kids went to college and decided it was a place to party? Yeah. So this is a second chance, mid-gap, to say, we're going to help you to where you want to go. And here's a career counselor to help you see what your passions, your aptitude, your skills are, and help you get going. We think most of the employers, they have to have a job. So we think most of the employers will work with them. I'm a business consultant. Been in the Valley 60 years in business. And I've been a turnaround guy, and I have been in about 200 businesses in the Valley. And I would say 80 to 90% of the employers would work with somebody who wants to improve their life skills, and would even help the person say, here's what you can do, and for a raise or for a different So I think employers by and large will work with them, and that's going to be part of our interview process. But there's a few that once they know they're not going to be there forever, fire them. So I can't say the employer will always be involved, but this is about just.
Okay. I'm going to have apology there because I need to make sure we keep going.
Yeah, I
A
was
lot
gonna
of people
jump in.
here that want to testify. I would love our answers and questions to be a little more succinct and a little bit more specific to the application.
I'll
I
go
totally
through.
understand your mission. I think you've made that very, very clear. Appreciate that out of complete respect to you, but I want to make sure we move this along.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask a follow-up actually to press them for a little bit more clarification on one part of that. So can you elaborate how you will handle residents who commit crimes or who are otherwise disruptive? I'm not an expert on dorm style living under Idaho law, but I do know in my day job, I work in a nonprofit that deals with housing related issues. And I do know that there are laws, they tend to be, more skewed in favor of a landlord versus a tenant, but you do have to meet certain criteria under those laws to kick someone out. You can't just say, you broke my rules, you're out. So
Right,
can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's a little bit of a long answer, but we're going to have So here's kind of our concept at this point in time is there will be a review. So if a house manager or mentor says this guy is disruptive and he's not working well, he will have the right to have a review that'll be a composite of a different mentor or manager and 3 or 4 other dorm residents, students, and he will be able to pick out of say 5, he'll be able to eliminate maybe 2 of them, and so that's his appeal process in the residence. But it's a dorm, and if he doesn't abide by all the rules, then we have the right to evict him eventually, and only after we see that it's not a problem he's exhibiting a problem we can't handle. And if he commits a crime, we call the police. I don't know what to say.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple more, Mr. Chair.
All right, go ahead.
This one's for staff. Jesse, did BPD provide any feedback about this application, and are they available to answer any questions we have?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, no, we did not get any comments from them.
As a follow-up, excuse me, there were a lot of concerns in the testimony we got, or the written testimony we received, about the potential for sex offenders being housed at this property. I believe the number, and I'm not an expert on this, but I believe the number is they can't be within 500 feet of a school. Is this property located within 500 feet of any schools?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, so if anybody who wants to live on this property would still have to follow all state and local laws, which includes any location restrictions on where they could live. I don't know the exact distance to the nearest school, but I believe it's more than 500.
Okay. As a follow-up for the applicant, well, go ahead and I'll let you answer.
I think people keep getting confused because we're using the term transitional and recovery, and that's not what this is. We're not interested in being a direct release from prisons. But that's outside our skill set. That's what halfway houses are for. We are not a halfway house. We're looking for our target is those that already have a job. They're already in society, but they want to improve their life skills in their workforce, and they want to get ready for a trade skill, a service skill, or a college education. And we want to help them get ready for that. So we don't like the term transitional or recovery. We like the term dorm and campus.
So just to clarify on that, because I believe when the neighborhood association gentleman spoke, he mentioned people who are on probation or parole, but also people who are on the sex offender registry. Obviously, people who are on probation and parole are directly under supervision as a condition of that parole or probation. But people who are on the sex offender registry, that's something they have for pretty much the rest of their lives. So they may be working, they may be in the community. Assuming this property isn't within 500 feet of a school, do you plan to accept sex offenders as your
residents? We plan to abide by any and all laws.
Okay.
And we're going to be, I've got to be careful here because I'm being a little utilitarian here. If we help a student that's 25 years old and single, and we help him, we have helped somebody for the next 50 years. We have helped them in their marriage with their spouse in the future. We have helped their children. If we help somebody, if we give up a room for somebody who isn't really interested in education, have some issues that really don't allow us to help them with work skills, hiring skills, we've wasted a room for someone that we could impact for 50 years. And so that's part of the screening process. Our position, because people wanted to say, well, you're not going to take somebody with a felony in their past. And I'm thinking, look, if they've already paid their price and they pass all muster and we think we can help them, why are you putting a second form of punishment on them above and beyond the justice system, the law, the people that know the details? And so if there is a sex offender, the first thing we do is what stage, what phase, what class. We visit with a parole officer. before we even let them attend church. And this is a open door church. It's not an open door dorm. They have to convince the interview team with their employer, with their family, the career counselor, that they're serious about improving their life skills. And we don't want to put constraints that the legislature or the justice system has already established. We want to abide by them, but we want anybody to feel like they can apply, but we will discern or screen out those that we think we're going to help the most and going to most impact our society.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Mr. Chair, I have one last question, if you'll indulge me, and it's for the neighborhood association. I guess, can I ask the question? I guess he is the designated neighborhood,
Yeah.
Okay.
They're fair game.
if he's still here.
Mr. Melby, if you wouldn't mind, real quick.
I'll go ahead and ask it while you're walking up, if that's okay, to save some time. This is in no way prejudging how I'm gonna vote on this, but
Yeah.
we've had concerns in the past in planning and zoning hearings and other hearings and at city council hearings about neighborhood associations, representatives speaking on behalf of the neighborhood without accurately polling the neighborhood. Now, there are a lot of people here in your neighborhood. I
Yeah.
can see that.
I am not speaking on behalf of the
And I
neighborhood
know you said that. I
association.
just wanted to reiterate that and get that confirmed on the record again. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Stallings, I think you had some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quick and kind of like the house managers that you're speaking of that kind of help mentor, the residents that might live in this dormitory. Do they have any official, do you have a requirement that they have a prerequisite or any certifications by any official agency or any training in any, do you have any program on what that role needs to be defined as?
I mean, we will develop our own basic training, but no, this is not a recovery or transitional home. These are young kids or students that could go to BSU if they had the money and if they had the background to do it. So we just, in my due diligence, there are a lot of mature people that have retired that feel like they now don't have something to offer, or would themselves like company because they're a widow, or and so we think they have mature life experiences that will help younger ones. And so we believe there will be some dorms that one manager guy can be over 3 separate dorm units, maybe 9 students. 9 students. But we think there will be some that just don't have enough social skills and get along skills that they may need to have a more rigid, Marine sergeant. So we will try to fit based on who the students are, what kind of mentor manager and what kind of concentration. So there'll be a career manager counselor. There will be an on-site manager and an assistant site manager. And then there will be an on-site pastor. And then there's a board, the safety net board. So we'll deal with whatever issues that come up. But the dorm allows us to deal with them immediately.
One quick follow-up.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
please.
The counselor, would that be a certified counselor then on site?
So we'll find a career counselor and it's built into the rent. We'll find a career counselor. The other board member is Ray Casey for Safety Net. She's a PhD and develops programs already for George Fox University. So along with her skills and her and all of our connections, we'll find somebody that, or multiple people part-time and assign them out. But we'll have people that specialize in career counseling. We also know the Department of Labor wants to be able to help us. So.
Okay,
Mr.
other
Chair.
questions? Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chair. I gotta be pretty quick. I think this is pretty extensively covered. So I'm just trying to understand a couple of aspects related to use. So the supportive services piece, is that covered by, so in the kind of use bucket, all the supportive services, the garage, classroom deal and all that good stuff, is that covered by the use in our use table called uses related to and operated by a religious institution. Is that kind of how that, what bucket that's going into?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, could you repeat that question?
So there's that shop building on the south that has kind of the garage deal with, and some classroom style rooms there. Is that used, because that wouldn't be covered by kind of the co-housing piece. Is that covered by or classified as uses related to and operated by a religious institution then?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, so the co-housing use does allow for some shared facilities for the program. So we would classify this as accessory to the dorm use because they'd be used by that program and those students.
Okay, understood. And then, so the other piece that I'm struggling with a little bit is the bike parking. I see it's calculated as, it's calculated like multifamily, but kind of the whole structure of this particular use is individually leased rooms. So you potentially have, many, many people who do have bikes that they want parked in long-term parking or, protected and secured and away from the weather. Is there any consideration for more bike parking spaces given kind of the individual leasing style of this particular application?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the parking for co-housing is a director determination. So it's not set in code. We had asked the applicant to provide what they thought was appropriate and why, and staff agreed with their proposal that it was most close to multifamily and, people can have multiple bikes per apartment building or per unit within multifamily. So we found that ratio to be appropriate for the proposal.
Okay. And the way that this one was calculated, I think is probably what's confusing me because I think there's 33 units and 33 bike parking spaces. So maybe that's just missing a couple of spaces or something like that. For this, what is it? It's one bike space per one bedroom and then half one per each additional bedroom or something like that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, the bike parking that's provided, staff found that to be appropriate. If that is something that you would like to condition that they add more of, I think the
Understood.
applicant may be amenable to that.
Okay. Perfect. And then just to kind of circle back and let me just double check because I've heard the difference between the various uses said several different ways. And I think I understand the city's logic for going co-housing, but I want to make sure that that's exactly right. So recovery residence kind of includes the definition. I'm just looking at the definition section of code. Includes an and statement. It says and treatment for the exclusive use of persons requiring medical, correctional, and other mandated supervision. That's not exclusive here, part of the program that we understand. So that doesn't apply. So recovery residence wouldn't apply. And then I'm going to boarding house. That seems towards the end of the boarding house definition. It says for 6 to 12 guests who are not members of the householder's family. So the non-members is applicable, but more guests. So then as part of that, that's kind of where we start to fall into the co-housing, because under the definition of co-housing, it kind of lists what we're requiring here that doesn't apply to recovery or boarding house. Is that kind of the general logic to kind of narrow down where this use is falling in terms of the code as it stands right now?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, yeah, that's correct. That's kind of the logic that we got to call this a co-housing use. And then just the general definition of co-housing being the individually rented rooms with some shared facilities and then some accessory uses that could be shared throughout everybody in that building or structure.
Right. And then the other key piece of that is there's a minimum lease term that's required in that use too. The 28-day kind of minimum stay deal is also the other key piece of that too. Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, that's correct.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Jesse, in our code, there's a lot of ambiguity in certain places. Well, actually, let me back up. Crystal, did you have something you wanted to add? I thought you might have. You're okay? Okay.
I will if it comes back up.
I'm sorry.
I will if it comes back up.
Okay. So our code has some ambiguity to it, I think, and I would say one of the areas I wanted to ask about is we've talked a lot about halfway houses. I don't see in our code a capacity of residents under one roof that is permitted under a halfway house use. Am I missing that, or is there something else that I'm missing altogether? Like I think that it's usually like from my experience, it's been 8, 10, somewhere in there has typically been that number.
Mr. Chair, are you referring to so halfway house is more of a colloquial term.
Yeah.
I think our code refers to that more most closely as a recovery residence.
Right.
Which is again just like one individual household
Right.
living together, so that naturally limits how many people would be able to live in that one unit.
Right. But we never have, okay. So it would be fair, I think. The vast majority of homes in this city are going to be somewhere in that 3 or 4 bedroom range. You might have a 5, you may have a 6, kind of an outlier, but typically in that vicinity. So if we're renting out or someone's there and we have a home that has 4 bedrooms, we're probably going to have 4 folks occupying this recovery site. I'm trying to get some metric here.
Mr. Chair, I think that would be a reasonable assumption.
Okay.
That it would be, if it's a 4-bedroom home, probably 4 to 8 people.
Okay, fair. Okay. So, Mr. Neighbors, you have up to 100 bedrooms. And in in the open house that you held and in the application letter, you've been pretty forthright, to your credit, about, hey, we're not going to necessarily turn away somebody who's coming from a background that might be on parole. Fair. It has to go through this process. What is your ceiling?
What is my ceiling?
What is the number? Is there a number that you're capping out on for, say, the number of folks who are on parole in the overall number of bedrooms that you have?
I guess we haven't capped that. We thought if they paid their price to society according to a judge and probation, and we've interviewed them and we understand the circumstances and we feel like it's something we can help them with and it's safe, and then we would consider them.
Okay.
If we find the conditions of their release and their parole is something that we're concerned about, then we wouldn't consider them.
Okay.
I
Jesse,
think
did you have something you wanted to add? Looked like you were going to say something. No. Okay. Sorry.
I think first, to put some condition above the law is all of a sudden just seems weird to me.
So
but we do want to select those that we think we can help if they're on parole, after reviewing the reason and the conditions that the judge said and what the parole officer said and what their employer says and what their family says and that kind of thing. So I don't want to say we're going to reject all people with a felony, because
sure,
be
understandable.
ton of people.
Okay, understandable. So I'll go to another group of folks, because we've received an overwhelming amount of letters, right? And we read again the transcripts and heard the communication. I know that was a tumultuous night. It's obvious when you read that transcript. So we have another group of folks who have been risen up by a lot of the letters, and that's folks who have to register as a sex offender, right? We know oftentimes that is a person who registers is under one home or one apartment or whatever, so living solo, as opposed to under one roof, 3, 4, 5 folks under one roof. So I'll ask you that question. We have 100 bedrooms. You've been on the record saying, as long as someone who passes our application process, again, totally
And it's legal.
understandable, right, and legal. But there again, do you have any kind of a number of like, We're not going to go more than say
What-
10, 20, 30, 5, 2, I don't know.
What do you think is reasonable? I don't know.
I don't know the
Yeah,
answer to that.
we're not focused
My-
on that. We're
right.
not focused on that group.
Right. My job, our job with a conditional use permit is to look at public health, safety, and general welfare. That's all I'm trying to get to, is to understand the operations of your facility. Because as you said a moment ago, I don't know what to call us.
A dorm. That's what I call. I think
That's
using
where we're getting
recovery
here.
or transitional is
Right.
wrong. I
Mr.
think
Chair.
Mr.
we're
Chair, I'd like to interject here. So as Jesse had stated earlier, the director has determined that this use is classified as co-housing because it doesn't meet the definition of the other uses that have been discussed tonight. And I will just like to remind everybody
Yeah.
that tenant and landlord relations are not something that we typically include in the purview of P and Z. So just as we continue questioning, I just want everybody to keep that in mind.
Right.
And as we move forward.
Understandable. I
I'm
get
not sure
that.
what that meant, but
What's that?
I said I'm not sure what that meant.
No problem. Okay. I'm going to change subjects. I know that if Jesse, would you mind pulling up the images of the building? I know that this is an application that would go to design review, but I also know that P&Z has some limitations on a bit of the aesthetics, not a ton, but we do have some, and specifically the opposite view of that. Can you show the rear of the building? Because the images that are in our particular staff report have a pretty clear image of what the back of the building looks like. And I think it's from the north.
While she's looking for that, we have no problem changing the building however we need to at design review. I didn't spend a whole lot of money setting this up. I thought I'd do that if this gets approved.
Okay. There you go. So that bottom image. What I see on the top images is I see several things that are called out architectural details, but on the back side, there are no call outs of any architectural details. So I'm just trying to ask the question of, would you be open to making some changes in the back of the building?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I think that's an important thing. You do have neighbors to your north who are
Yeah.
looking directly
No,
at this.
I want it to be a really nice building.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, other questions regarding, well, anything at this point, but
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
And just to clarify, when we're looking at these elevations, if you scroll down to the bottom right corner. Yeah, I'm assuming that DR will also handle any sort of entryway off the street. I think that's required for DR typically.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yes, DR will take a look at the elevations and make sure that they are meeting all of the design review guidelines and code requirements.
So, thank you.
If I could add, the pastor's office is off the street, so they can walk in. It faces Cole Road.
Okay, any other questions of the commission? Any down there, Mike? You're good? Okay, if that's the case, then I think what we'll do is let's take 5 minutes. We'll kind of regroup and then we'll open it up to public testimony. So sit tight. There'll be some folks who want to say some things and then we'll come back for rebuttal if we hopefully have time to make a determination. Okay,